the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro. Oh, what happened here? Jeez, there's always something. What in the world is going on with my camera? Okay, my bad. There we go. I just fixed it. All right, okay. Are we good? We are good. You would think I would have been smart enough to do a test before going live here on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter, but I'm not always all that smart. How's everyone doing tonight on this Monday, January 16? It is 1 minute past 10 p.m. And here we are, of course, the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. And usually on Monday nights, Eric Engels joins us. We'll get to Eric in just a minute. Not before I talk to you about the people who bring you the show, starting with Energy Transportation Group, an asset-based 3PL provider offering outstanding service at incredible rates, serving all of North America. Energy Transportation Group offers full-service logistics support. Also brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And brought to you by Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you. When am I going back to Lacage? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to be back at Lacage this Saturday night. This time I'm going to be at Lacage Bell Center on Saturday night, because on Saturday night I'm going to go watch the hockey game. A buddy of mine invited me to the game, and he usually does like once a year over the last couple of years, and I always say yes, and it's a night out, and so I'm Are we live? Are we live now? Because I know that you lost me. We are live now. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Once again, I'm on hardwired, but when you're working with the internet, sometimes these things happen. I didn't do anything. I'm here, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm gone. No, the mouse did not chew the cable. My buddy Joe came in, as a matter of fact, closed up all the holes in the house. And I don't think, I haven't seen a mouse since. I really haven't seen a mouse since. Sammy Cavallaro and Agnello Cavallaro are back at Master Control. Sammy, you'll let me know when we have Eric Engels of Sportsnet and sportsnet.ca, because Eric is a regular on Monday nights, and I've just been told that we have him. So let's go to him without further ado. Eric, how are you, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good. Very, very good. We went off air for whatever reason there. For about like 30 seconds or so, but we're back. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday, because Wednesday, Kent Hughes is going to talk about like the midway point of the season, even though we've passed it. The Canadiens have played more than 41 games, but I guess they were looking for a time to do this. And tomorrow night, the Canadiens are going to host the Winnipeg Jets. And then on Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. at the training facility in Brossard, Kent Hughes is going to meet the media at 12:30.
Yeah, I think he would have done it sooner. It's just they had their scouting meetings last week. All the amateur scouts were in town, and timing-wise, with the Canadiens leaving town for the weekend, play those two games, come back, and then didn't want to do it on game day on Tuesday as it was initially scheduled. So they settled on Wednesday. I don't think any of us are complaining. It's always fun to talk to
No.
the GM, and he's been
course.
readily accessible since he took over the job from Marc Bergevin. And so
They all have.
I think he, much like Marty St. Louis, much like Jeff Gordon, much like anybody you deal with in the organization, smart, insightful man. There are serious questions to get to with him, and I'm looking forward to hearing how he answers them.
Not only has he been accessible, but other members of the organization have been accessible as well, right? If you want to talk to Rob Ramage, for example, you can. If you want to talk to Jeff Gordon, you can. And, under the previous management team, Trevor Timmins was made available around the draft. I think, pretty much, the day before the draft or a couple of days before the draft, and then right after they made their selections. But other than that, if you wanted to talk to other members of the management team throughout the year, it was difficult.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that it's a cinch that just about anybody you want to speak to, you can speak to them at any time, in any place. There was a great openness at the beginning of this thing with Jeff Gordon taking over, with Kent Hughes coming in, with Marty St. Louis around, to get introduced to everybody in the organization and speak to different people. I think both Gordon and Hughes have taken a slight step back from that and making certain members of the organization available as much as they were before, because they want the shine to be on the players, right? There was so much discussion about what was happening off the ice, and it's the players who play the games, the players that are paid to play them, and the players who were able to turn around kind of, or remove the stench of last season, and come into this one and author a bit of a new story before obviously things got difficult in the month of December. I think they're rebounding right now, or in the early stages of doing so. I don't necessarily believe that they'll be, win one, win two here and there, lose a couple, win one, like a 50% kind of margin. But, they are competing a lot better of late. And I think that's setting the tone for how they like to be through the second half. Injuries will happen. They already are. Trades will happen. They're frozen right now, but it will come as we approach the trade deadline. And we'll see. Some young players will get more opportunity, and we'll see what that generates. But I think management was interested in us talking about the players a bit more than them. And that's probably why it slowed down just a little bit here.
I don't know how many calls I received today to talk about the Canadiens, but I received quite a few from buddies of mine and stuff like that. I was just on the phone with my cousin's husband probably about 30 minutes ago or so, and he was another one. And, even though we shouldn't be surprised by Cole Caufield scoring again yesterday versus the Rangers, I have to tell you, the conversation we were having was, like, Cole Caufield is the greatest pure goal scorer the Canadiens have had, I think, since Lafleur and Schott. And the reason why I say that is because we know that Brian Bellows scored 40. We know that Vinny Danfus, I believe, scored 40 as well. Stéphane Richer had 250, one season of 50 and one season of 51, I believe. So 2 seasons like that in a 3-year span. If Caufield hits 50, and right now Caufield has 26 and 44 games, so he's on pace to hit very, very close to 50, probably about 48 or 49 or whatever it is. If Caufield hits 50, for me, I was a huge Richer fan. He's a greater goal scorer than Richer. Like, Stéphane Richer was over 6 feet. Stéphane Richer was like over 215. Stéphane Richer had a long reach. Stéphane Richer had a cannon of a slap shot. Stéphane Richer had a much bigger frame. Cole Caufield is like 5'7". Not that height matters, but all things being equal, it's always a plus to be bigger and stronger. Does he have as hard a slap shot as Richer? No. He does have a sick wrist shot and a sick release. But would you agree, like, Cole Caufield's the greatest goal scorer the Canadiens have had since Schott and Lafleur?
I would amend the statement. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a better goal scorer than Richer, or even necessarily Max Pacioretty, who put in, several 35 plus goal seasons with the Montreal Canadiens before, he was traded out of town. What I would say is that of the players who are known for scoring goals, he's the best player we've seen since those guys that you just mentioned. Like, I think Cole Caufield does not get enough credit for his all-around game and the way he plays and his anticipation and his abilities, the way he maneuvers as soon as he gets the puck to free himself from the immediate pressure that comes to you when you get the puck in the NHL. It's elite. He's got elite hands. He's got an ability to score in multiple ways, not unlike Pacioretty. That's why I say, is he a better goal scorer than Pacioretty? Is he a better goal scorer than Richer was? Not necessarily.
Well, Eric, pardon me. He's going to have to show the longevity because Pacioretty had about 6 of those seasons.
Yeah,
but so far, what we're seeing, this guy's going to be a better goal scorer than Pacioretty.
I don't know.
He's got 26 goals in 44 games. Pacioretty never had more than 39 with the Habs.
Yeah, no, I think he's got 50 goals in his last 83 or 51. Yeah. 51 in his last 83, something like that. Again, I don't like parsing the numbers that way because doing it over a full season, that's the whole thing. There's a grind of a season that goes with it.
Of course.
I wouldn't take anything away from any of the guys we mentioned before. Can Cole score goals better than those guys? No, I mean, they scored goals. Is he a better player though? Yes. And it comes down to what his abilities are and how versatile and varied he played, that he's able to create offensive opportunity. And I know it was his first assist since November 23rd when he got that second assist on Doc's goal against the Rangers, which kind of took me aback a little bit, but also coincided with Suzuki going a bit cold in the goal scoring department for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But man, this guy's playmaking ability. One of the biggest things that I liked about Cole Caufield before he came to the NHL, I watched a ton of him playing in college before he was coming to Montreal because I knew I had a sense for how good he was actually going to be. And it's just his ability to put himself in motion at the right times is elite. And again, I would never.
It's pretty cool that you had that sense, Eric, because there's about 10 teams that didn't have that sense.
Yeah, or 14. No, listen, Tony. I would never compare Cole Caufield to Evgeny Malkin. The two don't belong in the same sentence. But something I always appreciated in Malkin's game.
Nor do they play the same position.
No, and nor do they shoot the same way. And I typically don't. I never. People always used to compare Sakic.
Nor do they have the same size.
I could never compare Sakic and Yzerman because one was a lefty and one was a righty, and I think just righties and lefties play the game differently. But that's my own mental screwy thing, whatever. But to make the point, the thing that I've always appreciated the most in Malkin's game is his knowledge, his motion, his ability to consistently be in motion at the right time to be the best passing outlet option coming out of the zone, always swinging at the right time to get the puck and get it to do what he does best, which is skate through the neutral zone with it and make plays. Cole has that ability. Cole has that it's a sense, it is a hockey sense of where the play is going and putting himself in the best possible places to become the next option to get the puck in the areas where he can be dangerous with it.
Mm-hmm.
What's evolved in his game since he came to the NHL is what he does with it as soon as he gets it. Like I said, in the NHL, and the biggest adjustment for young players, and you're seeing with Slavkovsky, is the minute you get the puck, someone's on you. They've anticipated the play is coming to you, and so you've got to be a couple moves ahead. And I love the way Cole uses his skates and his body positioning to shield the puck, to turn it in a certain way as soon as that stick check is coming, that he's distanced it despite his small size. It is a tough thing to explain as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe if I had a whiteboard, I could draw it, but it just shows how much he's separating himself from the pack of players you mentioned before and how much he's bringing himself closer to the two players you mentioned in Schutt and Lafleur. I think when you look at those two guys, they weren't just goal scorers. They were really special players. Steve Schutt had the best hand-eye coordination of any player that had ever come before him. He used to tip pucks in better than any player in the game. Lafleur could score in every single way.
Andrew Chuck was great at that, by the way.
Yeah, he had the speed, he had the brain, he had all that. So, again, just to reiterate, Is he a better goal scorer than all those guys dating back to those two players that you mentioned? I don't know. Is he a better player than all of them with respect to Stéphane Richer, who I even once stepped on the ice and played with, that was a fun story for me.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a little fun story. It was back when I was playing like five times a week. I was playing hockey. I stopped playing hockey from like 18 to 21, picked it back up and started playing like 5-6 times a week. Got obsessed with it again and ended up in a random game that a couple of Ukrainian buddies actually turned me on to in the East End. And I stepped on the ice, one of those random Friday afternoon games where you don't know who's on your team until you get out there. They give you a white jersey or a dark jersey. You get out the ice, and I was wearing white. I picked up the puck as soon as I stepped on, took a couple shots, turned through a saucer pass, looked up, and the guy was passing me was Stéphane Richer. And sure enough, we end up playing on a line together. And first shift of the game, we come in 2-on-1. I fake a shot, throw a pass over to his stick. He shoots it in the net. And comes to celebrate. Goes, "You're a pretty good player." I said, "You're not too bad yourself with your 50 goal seasons in the NHL." Like later on in the game, Tony was standing in front of the net. I took his wrist shot off my foot, and I wanted to die.
Wow,
It was brutal. Anyways, that's my small Stéphane Richer story.
That's a pretty cool story. You played hockey with Richer. I played soccer with Zidane, which is a pretty good story.
You didn't headbutt you, did he?
No, we were on the same team.
Okay, that's good.
It was a game with some proceeds going to UNICEF at Percival Molson Stadium with about 15,000 people in attendance and members. You know, one team was composed of Montreal police and firefighters, and the other team was composed of former professional players, and they added in 2 members of the media, and one of the members of the media they chose was myself because they knew I had a passion for soccer. And he was wearing number 10. I was wearing number 9. And I don't know if I was playing striker or left wing, but anyway, I got in for about 28 minutes. I think I came in at the 27th, and I think I was subbed off at the 55th or whatever. But it was pretty cool to be on a field with Zinedine Zidane. Let me tell you, it's funny because
how easy did he make it look out there?
So. It was poetry in motion. Like at one point, I don't know if this actually happened or I imagined it in my head, but I'm pretty sure I saw him get out, with the ball with 3 members of the other team, basically trying to just form a circle around him. And I think he did a fake one way, and I think he lobbed the ball over somebody, and 2 guys ran for it. I think they bumped into each other, and he left them both on the floor. Like I'm there in the locker room like an hour before the game, and I'm doing all my stretches, and I'm making sure that when I tie my cleats, I double knot them and they're tight and they're this and they're that. He shows up in the locker room probably about 3 minutes before we have to go on the field for our warm-up. He barely even ties his cleats. He doesn't stretch, nothing. He goes on the field. He passes the ball around a little bit, keeps it up a little bit. The game starts. And he was playing like it was a joke for him. Like it was unbelievable.
They never lose it. Like these guys,
phenom,
make it to that level. Like even Richer was older, and I played with him. I mean, if the game was still just shooting, he had an NHL shot. Like it was lethal. Like taking it off the foot. I really thought I broke my foot. It was brutal for the rest of the game, and I took it right on the laces. But man, just to play with some of these guys, I mean, he's not the only former pro I play with. I used to play in a pickup game with Max Lapierre for a while, coming straight out of his NHL career. And he was, he could fly. He could fly. And so these guys, I mean, it's fun when they get into those situations because they'll take it easy, and then there'll be one shift where they're just like, oh, somebody's trying to play me harder because I'm a pro, and then all of a sudden
it's an eye-opener for me, and maybe it should teach me a lesson because, over the years, I kind of picked on this guy or picked on that guy or picked on this player or that player. Then all of a sudden you show up to a Hockey for the Homeless tournament, and a couple of people that are playing in the tournament, and a couple of players are pretty good. And then you see these NHLers going at 30% sometimes because they just want to fit in. They don't want to steal the show because they want to be part of the team. And yet they're so far much better than everyone else. It's not even funny. It is pretty cool. But I'll say this. I want to get back to Caufield for a second. And you talked about, his ability to shield the puck, his ability to protect the puck, his ability to turn with the puck. For me, his release is as good as anyone's release in the National Hockey League, past or present. Like some of the best releases I've seen, Alexander Mogilny, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, obviously. I mean, Sakic. Sakic. I think Peter Bondra at one point had like a pretty good release. Like, there's so many, right? There's so many we could name.
Sakic had the best one I ever saw.
Like, the best release you ever saw was Sakic,
just no take back, nothing. Just can put the puck anywhere he wants it.
Yeah,
in stride, standing still, whatever it is. The best shot I've ever seen.
Last year's Austin Matthews, I think, could make this conversation very, very interesting. Yeah. This year, no. But Joe Sakic had an ability, and this, not too many players have this ability. It's funny, we used to play ball hockey with a guy by the name of Derek Murphy. Derek Murphy is one of the best ball hockey players I've ever seen, and I've been following ball hockey since I used to play myself, and I probably was playing in a organized league in Montreal probably at age 15. And so I'm 50 now, but I still follow quite a bit. Derek Murphy had the ability on the jog or on the run, he can shoot a ball. We play, obviously, ball hockey with the orange balls, right? So on the jog or on the run, in stride, he can shoot and pick top corners. It's a very, very hard thing to do. Joe Sakic, skating through the offensive zone, could actually shoot the puck before others would react. You wouldn't think that he was skating the way he was and shooting at the same time. He had that ability that not a lot of players have.
Yeah, and be really a shot that came before his time. Like halfway through his career or maybe even on the back nine, came the carbon composites, the original Easton Synergy, and he just lean on that thing and shoot with no release at all. Like no take back. Like, if you go back to the mid-90s, a lot more guys were shooting like Yannick Perreault, where you'd bring the puck from back on your heel and move it forward in a sweeping kind of motion with a wrist shot. But Sakic was using the flexion of the stick way better than a lot of players around him. I mean, to me, the best ever. And the best ever at disguising a shot, and the best ever in terms of accuracy. You know what blows me away about Caufield shot? Coming back to it. It's not the velocity of it. And it's not even the release, actually. One thing about Cole is you look at all the great goal scorers in the game, and they're always looking to score top corner. It's always top corner, bar down, back bar. And Cole looks for the holes. Like, he will shoot. Yeah. He will shoot.
Especially on breakaways. He goes 5-hole a lot.
He goes 5-hole. He'll shoot under the glove. He'll shoot under the blocker, which is a harder shot to pull off as a right-handed player. As a left-handed player, it should be your shot 90% of the time that you get in there. You have a great chance of scoring, considering how the proximity between your left-hand pallet and a right-handed goaltender's blocker, like a regular,
because you're closer to the blocker
than you catches the other way, then it's a bit of a change-up for you as a lefty.
Yeah.
But as a righty, over the glove is a typical shot, or a cross-body top corner over the blocker. But he hits those different spots mid-net sometimes that goalies are not expecting. Yeah. They're thinking a guy who scores this many goals is going to try and go bar down, like all the young great shooters, even like Austin Matthews, So yeah, I think it's the versatility is incredible. His accuracy on the one-timer is incredible, and that's a mark of like pretty much every great goal scorer that's ever come before him. Go through the list. Go through Ovechkin, who everybody knows more than anyone now, to Matthews, to Kucherov, to Sakic, to Brett Hull, is the master of the one-timer. Cole can do it, and he can do it with the fastest, hardest pass, and it doesn't matter if the thing's rolling or on the ice. It's like he gets a stick on it and gets it. He has incredible skill. I don't think for a second that this guy will not be doing this throughout his career. Like, this is not oh, he's doing it now and we'll see what happens in 2 years. No, this is where he came to the National Hockey League with that pedigree.
Yeah.
And if not for a 30-game stint that was like completely the most bizarre thing to ever happen to him in his entire life under Dominic Ducharme, like that's all he's ever done.
Basically, translation of what Eric's saying is that
no, don't translate.
should Kent Hughes offer Cole Caufield an 8 or a 7-year deal, you don't have to sweat it because this is not just a one-off. Speaking of which, one guy, and by the way, for those who are on YouTube Live, when I said, when Eric said, I knew that Cole Caufield was going to be special, and I said, well, Eric, you were smarter than about 10 other teams. And then Eric said 14, and a lot of people were like, yeah, 14. Cole Caufield was drafted 15. He's smarter than 14 other teams. The reason why I said about 10 other teams is because I don't think New Jersey regrets the Jack Hughes pick at 1. I don't think that the Detroit Red Wings regret the Moritz Seider pick at 6. And I don't think the Anaheim Ducks regret the Trevor Zegras pick at 9.
Yeah, Philly just might be kicking themselves about taking Cam York before the Canadiens.
Oh, they're not kicking themselves. They're on the verge of throwing themselves off the bridge right now. Speaking of that draft year,
are we going to talk about that contract? What about that contract?
The player that Minnesota took 12th is Matthew Boldy.
There you go.
And Matthew Boldy has 68 points in 89 games. Cole Caufield has 84 points in 121 games. Boldy's got 27 goals thus far, and Cole Caufield's got 53 goals thus far. Matthew Boldy signed, is it a 7-year deal at $49 million, I believe?
Yep.
$7 million a year. So a lot of people are looking at that and they're saying, hold on a second here. So we know now for sure that Cole Caufield will get at least $7 million, maybe even $8 million, and who knows if he's going to get more. But we didn't need Matthew Boldy to sign his contract to know that Cole Caufield was going to get at least $7 million a year, did we?
No, but also and even more to the point, there's really I don't see a comparison between the two players. They don't do the same things. The only thing that's similar between them is that they came in the same draft and played for the same program, played for USA Hockey. And the reason Matthew Boldy got a 7-year, $7 million AAV deal right now is because Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild know exactly what this player is and who he's going to be for the next 7 years. He's already shown what kind of player he is, what he does all over the ice. He's very consistent, not even necessarily in terms of production yet, but in terms of knowing exactly what you're going to get. They love him. I spoke to Bill Guerin. I sat with Bill Guerin recently. I was at the NHL Board of Governors meeting, and a couple of other people watching the Minnesota Wild play, and him talking about how much he loves Matthew Boldy. And if you watch the Minnesota Wild play and watch Matthew Boldy play, you will know exactly why. Is he a comparable for Cole Caufield in a contract negotiation? No. Will Pat Brisson pick up the phone and call Kent Hughes and say, well, Boldy got 7 over 7. So,
of course.
Because the truth is, if Kent Hughes is making an offer to Cole Caufield over 7 or 8 years, the number doesn't start with 7 anyways. This is something you and I discussed earlier on this year. And I said to you, the only incentive for the Canadiens to get Caufield done for 8 years right now is to be able to get him at a number that's lower than Suzuki. And I don't see any chance of Cole doing that right now because he'd be selling himself short. He'd be selling himself too far short. The reason Suzuki got the deal he got when he got it was because they knew exactly what Suzuki was and what he was going to do over those 8 years, and both sides were comfortable with that. It's not like Cole wouldn't want to be a Montreal Canadien long-term and guarantee himself that he's Suzuki's winger or Kirby Doc's winger or whoever, or Pierre-Luc Dubois' winger in a few years. Oh, I'm just messing around. But no, that'll be a subject that we'll get into as days come along and the Winnipeg Jets come to town. But look,
well, why don't we get into it now?
Before we do, Tony, if you're Cole, and I could end up being wrong on this, okay?
Yeah.
If I'm Pat Brisson and I'm Cole, I say to myself, I'll sign 3-4 years right now, and it'll be at a number that you guys can swallow from a cap perspective. So I give us still a chance to win games and pick up other players and whatever it is. And that number, the precedent was set with Jason Robertson and what he did, and what he's doing now is guaranteeing that he's going to get a lot more on the next contract. But I think it was $7.5 million that Robertson signed for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if Cole signs a deal for 3 years at around that number, is he really going to be upset about making $7.5 million for 3 years and then cashing in big on another big contract? Like, no. But if you want to sign him now for 8 years and expect that he's going to take a discount just because he's getting 8 years, good luck. Like, I'm not saying it won't happen, but good luck. Like, I don't see it happening for a player who has 50 goals in his last 83 games and between now and the end of the season could end up with 45 to 50.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're saying. If you're Pat Brisson and you're Cole Caufield, you're thinking that if you sign an 8-year deal at $7.5 or $7.875 million or whatever it is, and 4 years down the line you have scored 50 goals 4 years in a row. Well, 4 or 5 years from now, that kind of player could be making $10 million on the market, right?
Or a lot more than that. The cap is going up. The numbers are being set by the biggest and best players in the world. And if Cole Caufield becomes an established 40-plus goal scorer year over year, he's one of the best players in the world. Like, there's no debating that. Whether we value centers more, goal scoring is the greatest premium in the NHL. There's not a lot of guys that can do it at that level. This year, there's more of them than we've seen in years before. But will that continue to be a trend moving forward? Not necessarily. Will it continue to be a trend with Cole Caufield, who has spent his entire life scoring goals and breaking records? Yes, that's what he does. That's who he is. The Canadiens know. Cole Caufield knows. Pat Brisson knows. So where will be a compromise for both sides to come to that Cole will be happy with what's coming into his account over a couple of years, 3 years, whatever it is, and that he'll be happy and feel like he's not selling himself short in the long term, because it's a really hard position to be in and say to yourself, well, they're offering me 8 times 8 and that's a lot of money. And so, what are they going to say about me if I don't sign that? And this, I think that's why you have an agent, and the agent will tell him. If I was his agent, I know what I'd be telling him. I'd say, cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a lot of money to play for 2-3 years. Forget about 8. Because you're going to get another 8 on top of the 2-3 that you're going to get a lot more money for if you keep doing what you're doing. And nothing's guaranteed. You get hurt or whatever it is, but
yeah, you
won't feel as though you left so much money on the table if for whatever reason over a 2-3 year deal you're making $21 million.
And let's not forget, if you sign an 8-year deal right away near the end of that contract, those are unrestricted free. What could have been unrestricted free agency deals, right? And as you know. Yeah. Teams break the bank for unrestricted free agents, right? There's always one team that is going to take a look at a player and say, man, you know what? He's worth it. I'll give him $10 million.
Yeah, especially if they could score 40 goals minimum in a season.
Yeah. Speaking of 40 goals, one guy who's on pace to score close to 40, probably about 36 or 37, is none other than Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm going to get to him, not before I say hello to my sick army, everyone watching on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live, on Twitter Live, as the numbers keep on going up, and we appreciate it. It is the Sick Podcast, and tell your friends about it, and hit the like button, and message SICK, S-I-C-K. It is our way of feeling the love. All right, earlier today in Montreal, Pierre-Luc Dubois announces his foundation and a commitment to raise some money, which is a pretty cool thing. But even before he did that, and the Winnipeg Jets, of course, are in town because they visit the Canadiens tomorrow night, there's a lot of people that have been talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois, and the Montreal Canadiens wanted him. Marc Bergevin wanted him. Trevor Timmins wanted him. And now Bergevin's no longer there. Timmins is no longer there. But if you speak to people close to the situation, they'll tell you that Pierre-Luc Dubois wants the Montreal Canadiens. And I know you're not supposed to say that because under contract with Winnipeg, but I can say it and it's not a problem. Having said that, you'd have to think that the Montreal Canadiens would always like to have good players on their team, especially players who can play center and wing. And the fact that they're from here is not a bad thing either, right? From Saint-Agathe-des-Monts, Pierre-Luc Dubois had 28 goals and 60 points last year. This year, after 44 games, he has 20 goals and 49 points. Eric, he's an RFA at the end of the year. But let's just say he says to the Jets at the end of the year, guys, I'm going to sign one more year. I'm not signing a long-term deal. I'm signing one more year, which will take me into unrestricted free agency at the end of the 2024 season. At that point, Eric, if you're the Winnipeg Jets and Pierre-Luc Dubois only wants a one-year deal, for you, the writing is on the wall. That means he wants out. And then you have to trade him. So the decision is you trade him in the summer of 2023 or you trade him at the trade deadline of the 23-24 season. As you look into your crystal ball, my man, do you see Pierre-Luc Dubois with a Montreal Canadiens jersey on?
I'm having an easier time seeing him with a Montreal Canadiens jersey on than a Winnipeg Jets jersey. I'm having an easier time seeing him in a Montreal Canadiens jersey than just about any other jersey in the NHL. Does that guarantee that it's going to happen? No. A lot of different things can happen between now and the time that a decision needs to get made on his future. If you're the Winnipeg Jets, you really see how this season plays out, in which you're getting a Norris Trophy type season out of Josh Morrissey, in which the forwards are providing good depth, in which the coach, Bones, is doing an unbelievable job, in which Dubois is playing his best hockey. There's nothing going on between now and the deadline, that's for sure. And as you
Did you just call Bonus Bones, by the way? Did you just call him Bones?
Yeah, that's what we call him.
It sounds like no, I know that, but it almost sounds like you guys are friends. Like it sounds like
sorry, Rick Bonus.
Okay, it's all good.
Rick Bonus.
Yeah,
he's doing a great job. He's a great coach. He's a great defensive mind. Great people person. Everybody loves him.
Yeah.
I just think, if you're Winnipeg, what's the hardest thing to do when you're the Winnipeg Jets? It's to get people to commit long term to playing for your franchise, right?
Yes,
you've got a lot of pieces that are really quality pieces that you can continue on beyond this year to continue to kind of chase the Stanley Cup. And you have to kind of see how things evolve this year and how that process goes this year and how deep you go into the playoffs this year, because that will dictate a lot of how you manipulate the situation moving forward. Because you may say to yourself, even if Dubois turns to us and says, I can only sign a one-year deal with you, I'm not going to sign long-term, you still, are you going to do what Calgary did? Yeah, more likely than not. But you never know how your emotions.
And then hold on a second. They could trade him wherever he wants. Like, he does not have a no trade clause contract.
Correct. He's an RFA. You can't get a no trade clause unless you're a UFA.
So
it's complicated though. Like, emotions get in the way, and what I mean by that is, like, say you're the Jets and you go to the Stanley Cup final this year and you come really close to winning, and then Dubois says, I'm only here for one more year, guys. Do you say to yourself, well, we'll take that one more year and kick the can down the road and we'll still be able
you still have to trade him. You still have to trade him. There's too many teams that have lost players who are on the verge, we're going to become unrestricted free agents and got nothing for them.
I know.
At the end of the day, one team wins the Stanley Cup. It's very hard to win it.
I know. I agree with you. I know what you do. I know what I would do. I know also, though, that when you get in those situations and you think we were so close this year and we could be close next year if we keep this guy, even if it means that we trade him for less further down the road, you can't discount that as a possibility. Now, another huge factor in that is when the agent comes out and drops hints about his client potentially wanting to join the Montreal Canadiens at some point or another, and you're the Montreal Canadiens and you know that, what are you giving up to get that player, knowing that a year from now you can let him walk to free agency and sign him without giving up anything?
Well, as you know, Eric, I mean, you're a collaborator on French Sports Radio, BPM Sport, 91.9 on your FM dial, Quebec's all sports radio station and Quebec's #1 sports radio station. I myself am a collaborator as well. And you know this, and I know this, is that some of the people that we work with, they've been talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois and the prospect of joining the Montreal Canadiens for several months now. people are talking in their ears, so it's clear as day that people close to the Dubois camp are whispering in certain people's ears to start to get the motor running here, that Pierre-Luc Dubois wants to come to the Montreal Canadiens, and let's make this happen. And I know that this is going on.
Why do you have to trade for him?
And I know that this is going on because the same thing went on with Jonathan Drouin.
So do you have to trade for him? Like, look at what the window is for Montreal. If Montreal gets Pierre-Luc Dubois, if they trade for him this offseason, which I'm not discounting as a very strong possibility. I think it's a very strong possibility that happens. But even if they do they become a contender next season? No. Like the plan is really
depends where they draft, Eric.
Yeah, it depends where they draft.
Well,
sure.
They win the lottery.
Yeah,
they get Connor Bedard at number 1. They pull a trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois. We're a contender, my friend. We're going to the playoffs. They're going to the playoffs.
Everybody thought that about Ottawa when they built one of the best top sixes in the NHL, and then they've remembered that you win with defense and goaltending, and they haven't had it this year, and they're not even a playoff team. Like, I'm just saying, Tony, it takes time to build a team, and there's no rush here. I'm not saying the Canadiens won't trade for Dubois. In fact, they even have a couple of pieces to really make that deal work without necessarily destroying their prospect pool to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Winnipeg, your biggest challenge is getting players to sign long-term. The Canadiens happen to have players signed to long-term deals that they could potentially ship in a deal like that could prove attractive to a team like Winnipeg. So I'm just saying, not saying that would be a 1-for-1 proposition. I don't think the Canadiens are going to be able to trade Josh Anderson 1-for-1 for Pierre-Luc Dubois. But if they want to pull that type of move, or a guy like Brendan Gallagher is involved and on top of different pieces, maybe that's what it takes. Whether or not the incentive is fully there to do it will depend on what the asking price is. Because if you're Montreal and you think, you know what, we got one more year here, and then he's an unrestricted free agent, and he wants to come here, and we'll give him the money because it'll be freed up on our cap. Why would you, what happens if they turn to you and say,
it's a good point that you brought up with the Ottawa Senators, because the Ottawa Senators going into the season had a top 7 of Norris, Stützle, Tkachuk, Batherson, Giroux, Pinto, and the Brinket.
Yeah, they're amazing.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. With Thomas Chabot and Bernard Docker and Jake Sanderson and Travis Hamonic on defense.
Yeah,
it's not too shabby. It's a good point.
with Artem Zub and Chabot and everybody else not there yet. Like, not where you need to be in order to do what you need to do. It was premature to say the rebuild was over. Let's be blunt. And it was a concern going into the season that their defense wasn't strong enough. And then it became a massive concern when Cam Talbot got hurt. But we're not talking about the Senators. I'm just saying, even if you look at it and say, you got to jump the market and you got to be able to get Dubois now, and all of a sudden, if you do, you can accelerate the rebuild. But you can accelerate it. Is it so urgent that you're going to sell key pieces of that future to make it happen when the player could literally walk to you in free agency? That is the question that is going to persist between now and when those decisions.
You're right. But if Winnipeg does not have a great year the following year, they will trade him.
Yeah. At the deadline.
Before they trade him, you probably have to put your best foot forward to try and secure him so that they give him to you in the offseason. And as you know, teams like to build their teams in the offseason, not during the season. So having said that, and now I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm not so sure you're going to like this game, but we'll play it anyway because you're a big boy and you got your big boy pants on, even though I can't see what you're wearing. What would be the most? You're Kent Hughes. And in the summer, you're hearing Pierre-Luc Dubois told the Winnipeg Jets, I'm signing 1 year because I want out after. What's the most you would be willing to put on the table during the summer?
My concern is that whatever it is won't get it done. And I'll tell you why. Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Same situation, right?
Yeah.
Ends up in a sign and trade out of Calgary.
Yeah.
He tells them he's not going to sign long term. What did they get for him? They got Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah. Pretty great return.
I think it's 50-50 that Pierre-Luc Dubois gets traded if he tells the Winnipeg Jets he's not willing to sign long-term. I'm talking this offseason. Yeah. I think it could bleed as far as the trade deadline, because if he really wants to sign in Montreal, he may not be willing to sign with anybody else. He may not be willing to go into the same scenario that Matthew Tkachuk did, where he wanted to get his contract done and play for somebody else. And he essentially dictated where he could play and where it would be. Like, if you're the Canadiens, what pieces are you giving up to make that happen? I'm not touching Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not touching Caufield.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the next guy on the list becomes a guy like Doc, which is something
ideally you'd like to keep him because of the success he's having on the
line.
You would,
but I mean, again, if
but you have to give to get, and
Dubois is a former third pick.
Dubois is a former third pick overall, and Doc is a former third pick overall. Yeah. And Doc is younger than Dubois, so he could obviously be and coming off a great season so far.
And he's under team control, which is a great asset for a team like Winnipeg. But that's where it gets tricky. Like, it's not like the Canadiens couldn't talk themselves into it. The only way they would do something like that, though, is if they really felt that they were risking not being able to get the player a year from now in free agency.
Yeah.
And that's under normal circumstances, that would be a scary enough risk to dive into that type of deal. Under these circumstances where the player really would like to be in Montreal at some point.
Yeah.
It becomes,
and Eric, for everyone watching, okay, who always wants to give up nothing and get the moon in return, okay.
Yeah, that's not all it would cost. It wouldn't just be Kirby Doc.
Okay,
it would be more than that.
No, and not only that. I mean, yes, Eric would rather give up Christian Dvorak over Kirby Doc, but Winnipeg's not going to make that deal. Okay, so we have to be realistic here on what it would take, and Eric believes it would take more than Kirby Doc for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Okay, let's move on. And a shout out to Playground. They have over 600 machines, poker tournaments, playground casino games, daily promotions, unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? They're located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. And I also want to give a shout out to our Sick Army, who's watching in big numbers. Once again, if you like what you're hearing, hit the like button and basically message us Sick, SICK. And if you're gonna go listen tomorrow via audio on Google, Apple, or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. We would definitely appreciate it. I got a 1-star review earlier today, by the way. I was told early on when I did radio, you're not supposed to bring attention to the negative, but somebody gave me a 1-star review. They just said I bring nothing to the table and I have no talent. And wow, it hurt me. But it is what it is.
He was watching.
Yeah, and it's probably somebody who's running another podcast. Okay. Samuel Montembeault.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about him.
Yeah. Let him run,
I said to Jean-Charles Lajoie earlier tonight, one of the beauties of sport on TVA Sports Television, I said to him, one of the beauties of sports is that this happens all the time, right? Unfortunately, players get injured. And then it's an opportunity for someone else to step up. And, these opportunities, sometimes players are able to take it and run with it, right? 4 games. We wanted to see Samuel Montembeault play more. About a month ago, Marty St. Louis came out and said that Jake Allen was his number 1. And now because Jake Allen is hurt, Samuel Montembeault's played the last 4 games. And I've never, the 4 games he's played have been his most consistent several games in a row, maybe throughout his entire career. It's been absolutely fantastic. He made 38 saves yesterday in MSG, and he out-goaled Shesterkin. I think that's pretty cool.
39, no?
Was it 39 saves? I thought it was
39.
38.
Shots. I wrote the wrong number in my column. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I mentioned to Jean-Charles earlier tonight that if the season would end now, even though he had some bad moments, but keeping in mind that this is not a very deep team and they've had a lot of young defensemen on it, I would think that he'd have to be a top 3 candidate for the Jacques Beauchamp Award for the 4th star on the team, don't you think? We're talking 4th star here. Cole Caufield's not a 4th star player. Neither is Nick Suzuki. He'd have to be a top 3 candidate, don't you think?
Oh yeah, he'd be number 1 on the list.
I think so. I think.
And then just to clarify, that is the player who put in the best performance without getting the recognition for it. You know, like the common recognition that a player would get for putting in a good performance. You know what I think about when I watch Sam Montembeault? How old is he? Is he 27?
I believe 26? He's 26. He could be 27. I'll look it up.
I think he's 26. I'm just looking really quick. He's 26.
Yeah.
And he's made significant improvement from last year to when he came here, right?
He used to play with Joel Bouchard with the Armada.
Yeah. From last year to this year, when you first saw Sam Montembeault last year to this year, there has been technical improvement in his game. There's been mental improvement in his game.
Rebound control is much better.
In his game. There's been a lot of different things improving in his game.
Yeah.
He's 26.
Yeah.
He was a highly touted prospect, a goaltender that Florida felt had potential to get better, that they didn't necessarily want to lose, and they tried to sneak him through waivers, and he ended up in Montreal because of a crazy situation where the Canadiens didn't have any goaltenders.
Mm-hmm.
And at 26 years old, takes a huge step in his development. You know why I bring it up?
Because there's a 29-year-old called Charlie Lindgren who took a huge step forward in his development with Washington by any chance? Or
no, no, but that reinforces the point I'm about to make.
Because if I just can't finish on this point, is that we've always heard that it takes goalies a little bit longer, and just take a look at Lindgren, and I think it's go ahead. I think it's incredible. I think he's such a gamer. I love this guy. I really like him.
If that has always been true, it has never been more true than now in an NHL and a game that is being played with much more offensive ability from lines 1 through 4 and defense activated in the play, a higher scoring league than ever than it's been for decades.
Yeah.
So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing it up because over the last year, anytime Cayden Primeau's name has come up within the fan base, all we hear about is that he's a bust. He's never going to realize his potential. They ruined him. He's 23 years old.
Snake Boisvert told me a couple of weeks ago, probably a good 10 days ago on the Sick podcast, that Cayden Primeau, with the exception of playing a couple of games, will never be an NHL goaltender. Not a number 1, not a number 2, not an NHLer at all. He said he might play a few games here and there because of injury, but that's it.
Great. Count him among 100,000 people to 2 million people saying the same thing about him that, with due respect, don't know who he is as a person or what he's been through to get to where he is. I mean, I think until we see something different from Primeau from a performance standpoint, those people are going to rule the day in terms of their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But be careful with a 23-year-old who had that much talent and rose through the ranks the way he did as a 7th-round pick, 199th overall in the draft in 2017. Be careful proclaiming that he will never be this or never be that.
Who was great a year ago with Laval.
Because there's a lot of goaltenders that have come before him that have developed at a later age. And Montembeault right now is the primary example. And Charlie's another one, a great example. Don't give up so fast. I know this about Cayden Primeau. His work ethic is exceptional. This is not a party kid, whatever it is. He's a good kid who cares so much about his professional career. He's had his struggles, physical, mental. He's coming off a concussion. Not easy. Not an easy situation. Not a team that's had a banner year playing in front of him in Laval. An opportunity for him to really shine considering those circumstances. It hasn't happened yet. He's just been okay.
Yeah.
But wait, see what happens and see what develops there because he has the toolkit. It's all a question of what he ends up doing with it from here to the point where he's supposed to mature and become a guy that can potentially take over. Will the Canadiens continuously look to add to the pipeline there. Will they 100% put their faith that Cayden Primeau would be the goaltender of the future? No. But when you hear guys like Jake Allen at the beginning of the year talk about he didn't even talk about Montembeault. He talked about how he had an opportunity to mentor a guy like Cayden because he sees what the potential is in the player. Don't dismiss that. I think Montembeault is a fantastic example of what happens in development sometimes, and is proof positive that you shouldn't give up on a player, especially at that position at the age of 23. We'll see what happens, but Montembeault is a great, come back to your point, he's a great story so far this year.
Yeah.
He really has developed well to the point where
big improvement. When I saw him the first time there, I was like, this guy's not an NHL goalie.
And listen, he may never be a starter, but if you're the Canadiens, you better let him run right now and see really what you have. There's a great opportunity to see what you have. And I know, Jake Allen signed, and Jake Allen is the ultimate team player. And I'm not saying that Montembeault should play 2 games for every one that Allen plays, but you may want to get in a situation right now where you go 1-1. And make sure that those numbers are even.
Eric, why not? You said, I'm not going to say Montembeault should play 2 games for every one Allen plays, but I'm going to say, why not? Are they going to make the playoffs with Jake Allen? No. Is Jake Allen going to get better? No, he's been in the league for over 10 years. I mean, Jake Allen is who he is right now, right? So
I don't want to look at it as why not. I would rather look at it as you're still looking at an excellent development opportunity for Montembeault and an opportunity to properly test what he can give you in a 1-1 situation. And you're creating a certain competition between the two guys that is healthy while not offending the goalie that you trusted in a certain role and, offered a 2-year contract to be the ultimate teammate, which he's been. You can't take anything away from Allen.
I understand
the way
that.
he's competed and the way he's been. I don't think you put him in a situation where you potentially not necessarily embarrass him, but make it seem as though you don't value what he brings when he's done nothing but give you what you're paying for.
I value what he brings. I think he's a great team player. I'm a little bit biased in this discussion here because even though they offered him a couple of years, if I would get a pretty good offer for Jake Allen before the deadline, he would be a player that I would be willing to move. That's why, I would not have a problem with playing Montembeault more often. But at the same time, if you do plan on moving Allen, and I don't think they do plan on moving him, but if they wanted to, they can only increase Allen's value by actually playing him more. So that kind of goes against my point, but it is
not a lot of franchise goalies in the league anymore, right?
No.
There's Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and Sorokin, and
you don't need one to win the Stanley Cup, Eric. And I know that one that is won 2 cups, but I would say that if Tampa Bay, actually maybe not,
put it that way, Colorado won with Darcy Kemper. He played well enough to win it.
Correct. But Vasilevsky on the other end was a better goalie, right? And Kemper still won, right?
We'll put it on another spectrum, people said the Rangers are way ahead of schedule, right? What's the number one reason you would point to that? It's Shesterkin.
Of course.
That's incredible. Sorokin, what Sorokin is doing with the Islanders. I mean, that guy is the real deal. And how many other goalies?
But how many goalies have won? How many goalies have won the cup in the last 10 years?
Well, I mean,
in the last 10 years.
Now you're really putting me on the spot because I'll have to
go
back and count.
Okay. So, but in the last 10 years,
6.
And but
how many of them won it on their own?
How many teams won the cup? And you would say the goalie was their best player, as good as Vasilevsky was.
He was their best player.
Yeah, he probably was their best player in one of the cups
through both cup wins and probably to the run to the finals. He wasn't their only amazing player, but he was their best. He was the playoff god.
Okay, but hold on a second.
He's not I would not say that he's the reason they won. I would say that they wouldn't have won without him, though.
No, but we'll never know the answer to this question. But once they were in the final, you take Vasilevsky, you put him on the Habs, you take Carey Price, you put him on the Lightning. I still think the Lightning won the cup, but we'll never know. Tampa Bay was just a better team.
They had to get there. They had to get there.
They did, and Vasilevsky was great in what I think was a 1-0 win over the Islanders in Game 7. Okay,
and I would also say though that in the Stanley Cup final against Montreal, he made the difference more than Carey did, and I don't even want to take anything away from Carey because
that's true too. But he's stopping Montreal Canadian shooters, and Carey's got to stop Stamkos, and he's got to stop Braden Point, and he's got to stop Kucherov, and he's got to stop Vlad. He's got to.
Yeah, but I know, but the only team that was playing better hockey in the playoffs that year was Tampa. Like Montreal, was tremendous. And if you don't believe me, ask the guys who had to play them for the Winnipeg Jets, who had a lot of firepower. And they got beat in 4 straight games.
I hear you, but Montreal realized in the final that Tampa's not Winnipeg. Tampa's Tampa, man.
Nobody was Tampa.
Yeah.
The only team that played better team hockey than Montreal throughout those playoffs was Tampa Bay. They were the only team.
Yeah, and the better duo that we've ever seen outside of Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov was you and Stéphane Richer. On that game in the East End. Hey, in ending, my God, 1 hour. Time flies when you're having fun. This has been great. So why don't I just give a shout out to matrixhomefitness.ca. Take home the club quality workout in the comfort of your own home. What machinery? When we're talking treadmills, we're talking ellipticals, we're talking roars. Visit matrixhomefitness.ca, and once again, bring it home. In ending, Woody, are you hearing anything on your Uriah Slafkovsky?
No, it's quiet right now. I don't know how serious it is. I don't want to speculate on it. I am very eager, like anybody else is, to find out. I'd like to believe it's not that serious, but I don't know. I wasn't in New York last night. I didn't get a glimpse at him after the game or anything like that. I'm much more concerned about the Jake Evans injury.
Okay.
That really looked bad when it happened.
Okay.
We'll see. Whatever it is, part of the gig, right? Like players get injured, and he's 18, and you hope he's back in action as soon as possible.
In ending, because a lot of people have been asking this question, and by the way, I tackled it about a week ago or 10 days ago on the Sick Podcast, and I actually wrote the answer that I gave then on this piece of paper, which I'll turn around in about 30 seconds. Yes or no, and why? In 1 minute, tell me. If the New York Rangers call the Montreal Canadiens and they say, we'll trade you Alexis Lafrenière, we want Uriah Slafkovsky, should Kent Hughes say yes or no, and why?
Oh, my God. You're going to turn this into one of those individual clips that I'm not going to want to see on Twitter the next day.
I'm going to turn it into an individual clip that you are going to see because we're going to get thousands and thousands of views.
Okay.
It's going to help.
I'm going to try and give you an answer that, okay. No. For 2 reasons. No. Okay. But I did kind of see you scribbling. No. But it didn't influence my answer. No for 2
Did you really? I got to hide that better.
No for 2 reasons, and none of them have anything to do with where Alexis Lafrenière is in his development. Because I actually think he's going to be a really good player, and I'm not worried about him at all. Slafkovsky's 18, and Lafrenière is 21, if I'm not mistaken.
This guy's so diplomatic with his answers. He's the best, man. That's the first one. I can never get one individual.
I'm going to give you something here.
I'm telling you, man.
One is Slafkovsky's 18, and Lafrenière is 21.
That's one of the reasons why I gave.
That's the first one. The second is Pierre-Luc Dubois.
I was going to say the second is the contract that Lafrenière will be leaving an entry-level contract, whereas Slafkovsky could still be an entry-level for the next 2 years, and you're going to have to give that money with the guys like Caufield.
You got to pay Caufield.
Yeah.
In 3 years, you got to pay Doc. You got to pay Slafkovsky.
Yeah.
And if Dubois is coming, you can't give up for Lafrenière.
Yeah. So if you're gonna go out and you're gonna acquire a good Chenu, you're choosing Pierre-Luc Dubois over Alexis Lafrenière.
You started this by talking about how he was in town to promote his new charity that he started, which is helping people around Montreal. He's taking over the charity that Vinny Lecavalier's charity, correct?
Yeah.
For years, everybody wanted Vinny Lecavalier in Montreal. Big center. Pierre-Luc Dubois, 6'2".
It's almost like there's a subliminal message there, right?
Over 200 pounds, plays the game as heavy as he is.
Yeah.
Has more than a point per game, already has 20 goals on the season. Do the math. It's gonna make a killing, gonna make a great contract. I think the Montreal Canadiens would love to be the team that gives it to him. I think he would like to accept it here. And I think that makes it really complicated starting to swing moves outside of that when you're not in your window yet, and you're not.
And you would think that Pierre-Luc Dubois wouldn't mind playing for Marty St. Louis, and he can whisper it to Vinny Lecavalier every now and then.
I don't think there's a player in the league who wouldn't mind. I think you'd have a hard time finding anybody who wouldn't want to play for.
I'd want to play for St. Louis, and I don't even know how to skate. Eric.
Yeah.
Regular every Monday. And the good news is the Canadiens don't play next Monday either. So I look forward to talking to you then. In the meantime, enjoy the hockey game tomorrow night. And you and I will see each other at the complex in Brossard on Wednesday afternoon for Kent Hughes' presser, because I'll be there. I'll see you there. Thank you very much, my man. All the best to you. Thank you for all your fantastic contributions to the program. I thought today was, in all humility, I thought it was a very, very solid 1+ hour of Habs talk right here, the Sick Podcast. Tell your friends about it. They're looking for a podcast where they talk Habs, with my buddy Cole here taking a seat on the Flowers chair. This is the podcast, the Sick Podcast, weeknights, Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern. With who? Who am I? I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6. Intense by nature. And La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.